My name is Andy Clarkson. I'm one of the organizers of the Charlotte Objectivists. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a wonderful speaker tonight, Dr. Yaron Brook. Yaron is the president and executive director of the Ayn Rand Institute, who's going to share with us this evening how Ayn Rand's ideas can end big government. Before we get to Dr. Brook, I'd like to take just a minute to recognize some of the folks who made this evening possible. So when I call out your name, you could just do a quick stand up and I can do a shout out. Cynthia Roth. Financial contributors who made this possible. John Withrow, Boston, Texas, and the Pride of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Frank Loretti. They couldn't be here tonight, but they contributed financially. Matt Ridnour, most of you know Matt, know of Matt. Matt was a big help in promoting this event. If you're part of the Charlotte Tea Party or Mecklenburg County Young Republicans, you're probably here because of Matt. He was a big help. We all know Matt has a big election tomorrow. He's running for County Commissioner. Matt's going to win big, and we wish him luck. We'd like to recognize Lynn Zinsner from the Ayn Rand Center, who works for Yaron. She couldn't make it tonight, but she was a big help. And then my two kids were the ushers. And are they out here? Melissa and Daniel, there they are. Did you all get the handouts? If you didn't, you got handouts. There's the Ayn Rand sampler, which are excerpts of Ayn Rand's works. There's the hot links. They are safe for work. They're not as hot as they say. And then there's man's rights. There are a few of these around. If you want some of these, man's rights, the nature of government, a lot of these ideas you want to be touching on. If you want to go into detail, these are two essays by Ayn Rand, and we've got a few copies of that. On a sadder note, I just want to take a minute to recognize somebody who can't be with us tonight. We in the Charlotte Objectivists community recently lost a dear friend. Rick Posado was a consistent defender of individual rights. He was for the past 3 years a very active member of our Charlotte Objectivist study, and Rick passed away about 3 weeks ago. We all miss Rick's sharp intellect and his subtle sense of humor. So Rick, it's nice for you, pal. So now to tonight's speaker. Yaron's going to speak until about 8:30. He's going to speak. He's going to do Q&A. And then from 8:30 to 9, we have these books for sale. He's going to do book signings. And once you hear content from Yaron, you're going to love the book. I bought it. I read it. It's fantastic. I recommend it to everybody. Yaron was born and raised in Israel. He served as the first sergeant in the Israeli military intelligence. He earned a Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering from the Technion Israel Institute of Technology in Haifa, Israel. Now, this next thing you may want to ask Yaron about, because I've got some questions about it. Yaron admits to being a socialist, not a liberal, but a socialist, until the age of 16. And then he read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. Despite his best efforts to poke holes in Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, he couldn't, but went on to become a student of Ayn Rand's philosophy. In the late 1980s, Yaron and his wife started thinking about where in the world they would want to emigrate to and live their lives to raise a family. Where could they find the greatest amount of freedom and the greatest amount of opportunity? The answer was clear. So in 1987, they emigrated to the United States, and he would go on to become an American citizen in 2003. He received his MBA and PhD in finance from the University of Texas in Austin. For 7 years, he was an award-winning finance professor at Santa Clara University. In 1998, he co-founded a financial advisory firm, BH Equity Research, which she is presently managing director and chairman. While in America, Yaron continued studying Ayn Rand's philosophy. In the mid-1990s, he joined the Ayn Rand Institute's new educational program, the Objectivists Graduate Center. It was in the OGC, now expanded to the Objectivist Academic Center, that Yaron deepened his knowledge of objectivism, thanks to the efforts of teachers such as Ayn Rand's heir, Dr. Leonard Peikoff, and Dr. Harry Binswanger, and Peter Schwartz. In 2000, Yaron left teaching to become president of the Ayn Rand Institute. Since then, he's become a leading advocate of Ayn Rand's ideas. His articles have been featured in major publications, such as the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and Investors Business Daily. And he's a frequent guest on radio and TV. Along with Don Watkins, he's the co-author of the new book, Free Market Revolution, How Ayn Rand's Ideas End Big Government. Please welcome with me to Charlotte, North Carolina, Dr. Yaron Brook.
Thank you for that. Thank you all for coming tonight. You guys ready for tomorrow?
Yeah.
Not really, no. And I mean ready for tomorrow, because the fact is, no matter who wins tomorrow, I have no clue who's going to win tomorrow. We've got our work cut out for us. It doesn't matter who wins in terms of the work we've got still to do. The fact is that for 100 years, we put the volume a little down, I think. It's kind of talk up. The fact is that for 100 years, this country has been moving steadily in one direction, no matter who's in the White House, no matter who's in the Senate, no matter who's in the House of Representatives, and that is steadily leftwards from an economic perspective. Government has only grown in the last 100 years. And it doesn't matter. I mean, a lot of you are probably big fans of Ronald Reagan. Government spending during the Ronald Reagan's 8 years doubled. Now, it was a significant improvement over the previous 8 years, where it had tripled. But it still doubled. And it's been growing since. Now, for a long time, we could kind of get away with this. We could kind of afford it. Not really, but in a kind of macroeconomic sense. I don't think we can anymore. I don't think we can afford to just slow the growth of government just a little bit and survive somehow like we did in the Reagan years. Not just with Romney's and Ronald Reagan. I mean, think of the most radical thing that Romney might do. He might pass the Ryan budget. Right? This is a budget that plans to balance the U.S. federal government's budget in 2040. 28 years. This is the radical Ryan that was going to throw grandmothers off a cliff, right? And believe me, if Romney gets elected, he is not going to pass the life budget. It's way too radical for the Republicans once they're in power. It's a good plan if they're in the opposition, but not once they're in power. So we're going to see government go, Ryan's plan goes government about 3% a year every year. It doesn't cut anything, it doesn't cut it down. It just reduces the growth of government. By 2025, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid consume every dollar of revenue the federal government takes in. And that's pretty optimistic. It probably happens a few years earlier than that. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are running unfunded liabilities. Take all the promises we've made, minus all the taxes we're going to bring in. The gap, in present value terms, discounted back, very good assumptions about economic growth and everything. The number is somewhere between 80 to 120 trillion dollars. That's the gap. That's what we're missing. You can't tax that. It can't come from nowhere. So, government is going to grow, and we can't afford it anymore. This is getting close to desperation. And the question is, what do you do about it? And to figure that out, we have to ask ourselves a question. And the question is, how did we get into this mess? How did we get to where we are today? What happened over the last 100 years to bring us slowly to where we are right now. And it happened kind of slowly. We let it happen. What is it? Because for the last 200 years, the world has run an experiment. And this is the experiment. The experiment is, which political economic system produces the goods? Like raises standard of living, creates wealth, increases the wealth of the poor. Right? Which economic system does that? Which doesn't? And we've run this experiment. We've run it in all kinds of countries across lots of different times and different places, and you know, the evidence is in. The funny thing is the evidence has been in for a long time. We've tried communism and fascism. We took it all the way, right? We took the socialist model and we tried it fully, consistently applied. And what was the result? The murder of over 100 million people and massive starvation. We tried pretty close to capitalism, right? We tried 19th century America as free economically as we've ever been. And what was the result? Unbelievable economic growth, the creation of a middle class, the creation of enormous amounts of wealth. We turned a, second-class colony. I mean, let's admit it. In 1776, we were a pretty minor colony from the perspective of the British. Otherwise, they would have won that war. They weren't going to devote that much resources to us because we were nobodies, right? And we turned this country into the mightiest country in the world. Not just militarily, but industrially. The richest, most powerful country in the world. In 120 years, by World War I, it was over. So we tried that, and we know it worked. And since then, we've been trying to kind of play around with that system and control it and regulate it and get government bigger and bigger. And what's the result been from an economic perspective? It's actually been slower growth. GDP grows slower today than it did back then. You know, real incomes during the 19th century doubled twice. What are they doing today? Almost nothing. A little bit up, but barely increasing. GDP per capita is not increasing. Any measure of economics, any measure. You know, we did better back then. Now, people say, well, that's America, that's a particular period of time, but look everywhere in the world. You know, people like to give the example of Sweden. Sweden is this socialist utopia, this magnificent country. If only we could be like Sweden. So Sweden, if you go back in history, and you look at Sweden, Sweden was incredibly economically free, incredibly capitalist until about the mid-1950s. And during that period, up until 1950s, it had created huge amounts of wealth. It then created this socialist government that took all that wealth that was created and spread it around. Socialism stopped the wealth creating machine. They just redistributed it, redistributed and redistributed. And they basically went bankrupt in the early 90s. Because they ran out of, and since then they've been deregulating the economy and moving in the other direction. So they kind of figured it out, right? My favorite example though is Hong Kong. Anybody been to Hong Kong? You should visit Hong Kong once before you go. It's something else to see Hong Kong. So here's a place in the middle of nowhere that has nothing, right? To walk in the middle of nowhere. They used to have a fishing village there. They used to grow rice on the hillside, right? And it had no population really. And in a matter of 50 years, Hong Kong makes, in terms of skyscrapers, puts Manhattan to shame. Hong Kong has per capita income equivalent to the United States. Hong Kong has 7.5 million people who emigrated there. And how did they get there? On rafts and on little dinky little boats and however they could. To escape any other country in Asia to get there. And what was there when they got there? Was there Social Security? Was there Medicare, Medicaid? There was nothing. There was no safety net, there was no government. There was a government that did one thing, and it protected property rights, pretty much. And poor people from all over Asia came there. They didn't come with money, they came with nothing. They escaped Vietnam and China and all these countries. And they built this amazing place. It's an amazing place. Free markets, capitalism works. The data's in. We've run the experiment. There's nothing more we need. And it's more than that. We know why it works. We've got economists who will explain exactly why it works and how it works and how capital is allocated under capitalism, why central planning doesn't work and what are the reasons. We get it. They even want Nobel Prizes. It's not even that they're shunned. We've got economists who explain capitalism. We've got the data to show that capitalism works. And yet we reject it. We turn our head away from it. We don't want any of it. The West is moving systematically away from capitalism. In spite of all the data, in spite of all the economic theory, in spite of all the knowledge that we have about its huge, huge benefits. And you see this time and time again. I'm sure when you debate people, you see this. You show them the facts, you give them the evidence, and they don't give a damn. They don't. It doesn't matter to them. Facts, reality, they don't matter. How many times have stimulus packages been tried in the world? Hundreds of times. Have they ever worked? No. But tell that to Bush and Obama. Bush tried it twice, in 2002 and 2008. Neither time worked. So Obama tried it this time bigger in 2009, and it didn't work. And he'd love to try it again if Congress would let him. And they probably will at some point. The economy doesn't recover. Did it work in Japan? Japan's been trying to stimulate the economy for 20-something years, since 1991, right? For 21 years. Has it worked there? No. Did it work in the Great Depression? No. It's never worked. Einstein had a name for this, right? Einstein, if you do the same thing and expect over and over again and expect different results, he called it what? Insanity. We're an insane culture. We do this over and over and over again, and nobody cares. It's not that they don't know. You think they're idiots? Paul Krugman is not stupid. He's not an idiot. He just doesn't care about reality. He cares about economic reality. He cares about something else. They lie. Well, they evade. Evade means they know it's kind of there, but they just don't want to admit it. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to consider it. And you see that probably when you debate people. They just, it doesn't matter. Don't confuse them with facts. So what's going on here? Fact of reality, the theory all suggests that if you care about poor people, if you care about freedom, if you care about wealth, if you care about making, any of these parameters, standard of living, then capitalism, free markets work, and any other system doesn't. And yet, everybody wants the other system. They don't want communism. They don't want to take you all the way out here, but they want to get close. They think they can kind of balance it just right. But even close, the standard of living is low. We know that. We know that from our experience. We know that from Europe. We know that from any other country. So what is it? There's something about capitalism, something about free markets that we viscerally reject, that we just don't like. It has nothing to do with our facts. It has nothing to do with economic reality. It has to do with something deeper, something much more fundamental. Causes people to respond negatively every time they think about markets, anytime they think about capital. And you see this in the way people respond to things like the financial crisis. And financial crisis hit, and immediately everybody said capitalism failed, free markets failed. Nobody had even time to do any analysis to figure that out. Now, it turns out that's complete nonsense, and it hasn't changed the rhetoric. They're still thinking it's capitalism, free market failed. I like to ask people, how can free markets fail? Does that mean that in 2007 we had free markets in banking, real estate, mortgage business? Free markets means free of government regulations. Those three markets, the most regulated markets in America. So, but they didn't even think. Immediately the response was. It's the same during the Great Depression. When the Great Depression hit, the immediate response was Wall Street, bankers, capitalism, all evil. Now today, any even semi-decent economist will admit the Great Depression was caused by the Federal Reserve and government policy. It doesn't take a radical free market guy to say that. Anybody would say that. It doesn't matter, it doesn't change, by the way, the fact that we still teach in our textbooks that it was caused by capitalism. We still teach that, but no economist believes that anymore. What is it about capitalism that causes this visceral, immediate reaction? What's capitalism about? What are free markets about? What do we do when we go into the marketplace? What are we after? What are we pursuing? Value. But what kind of value? What is this is an iPhone. Why did Steve Jobs make these? To make money? They just did a calculation on the iPad mini. The iPad mini's profit margin is between 40 to 60%. If Steve Jobs cared about me, he would have made it a lot cheaper. But Steve Jobs trying to make money. Now, is it only money? What else is it? What's that? Fame. Yeah, there's fame. What else? Achievement. Passion. You know, vision. Steve Jobs loved beautiful things. He wanted to see them become a reality. He wanted to make stuff. He wanted to create stuff. But you can say, I think unequivocally, that it was all about whom? It was all about Steve Jobs. The profit was all about Steve Jobs. The passion was all about Steve Jobs. And, you know, the other people at Apple. And when I bought one of these in 2008. And the economy was spiraling out of control, things were really bad. And I went to the mall and bought one because I wanted to stimulate the economy. That's why you guys go to the mall, right? You go to the mall because you care about your fellow man and you want to make sure there are jobs in America. What do you go for the mall to? To do what? To get what you want for what? For what purpose? For yourself. So the marketplace is a place where we meet to do what? To pursue our own self-interest. To get the stuff that we want, to produce the stuff that we want, to make money, to make a profit. It's about you. It's about each one of us pursuing our values for ourselves. At least that's what we think. There's no guarantee that there really are good values, but it's what we at the moment think they are. With the marketplace is a place where people pursue self-interest. Adam Smith got this a long time ago. Wealth of Nations. Anybody know when it was written? Very good. It's easy to remember, right? Wealth of Nations, 1776. He understood this. Adam Smith says, why does the baker bake the bread? Because he cares about you guys? He bakes the bread because he wants to make a living. Because he's trying to feed himself and his family. And the grocer who sells the bread, is he selling the bread because he cares about you guys? No, he sells the bread because he's trying to make a living. And Adam Smith's world, in the world of the marketplace, people are out there doing the things that they have a passion to do, that they want to do, that is going to make them money, it's going to make them profit, but it's all about people pursuing their economic self-interest. That's what the marketplace is about. And what are we taught about self-interest? Selfish, bad. But when we're this big, we're taught. I mean, I grew up in a good Jewish household. And my mother told me, think of yourself last. Think of others first. Be selfless. Right? And what's the essence of virtue? What's the essence of goodness? Sacrifice. And what does sacrifice mean? It means giving and expecting what in return? Nothing. Or less. But it's a losing proposition, right? The whole point is to lose. That's a sacrifice. And for example, what did Steve Jobs, did he sacrifice when he sold me this? No. What did he do? What do we call what we did, Steve Jobs and I? We traded. Did I benefit from the trade? Yeah, I got an iPhone, which I think is worth more than $300 I paid for it. What about Steve Jobs? He got 40% profit margin. Win-win. Notice, trade is win-win. Sacrifice is lose-win. And yet, what's moral? What's good? What's noble? What's just? Sacrifice. The lose-win. Right? And what's suspect and evil and greedy and bad? The win-win. Give you an example. When Bill Gates was making his gazillions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars, what did we think of him? Not as a businessman, we all admired his business ability, but as a human being, as a moral human being. What did we think of him, core moral thinkers? We thought he was greedy, that he was bad. At best, we didn't think of him from that perspective. He's a good businessman, leave him alone. But generally, we thought negative thoughts about him, moral character. Now, when did he become kind of a good guy? When he started giving it away. Particularly when he left Microsoft, he stopped making all that money and started giving it all away. And I think I know how to make Bill Gates a saint. What would it take to make Bill Gates a saint? Now, I haven't spoken to the Pope, so I can't quite guarantee this. What would he have to do? He'd have to give it all over, and he'd have to move into a tent. And if he could bleed and show some pain, then that would increase his probability, because that's the morality that we believe in. We believe in a morality that says that pain and sacrifice and losing and being selfless, that's virtue. Now, we don't want to live that way, right? Nobody does. My mother didn't even really mean that I should be selfless. She didn't really want that for me. But that's what we admire. That's what we respect. That's what we hold high. And what do we hold? The trading, the win-win, the making money, all of that, right? That's low. That's not moral. That's unnoble. That's not a good thing. I mean, when do you think Bill Gates helps more people? Just by the standard of helping more people. As a businessman or as a philanthropist? By far as a businessman. He touched every human being on the planet with his software. He changed our world. Our world is not the same. And yet, we give him no moral credit for that, and when he gives it away, that's when he gets the moral credit. Even though he'll help more people here. Now, why don't we like it when he helps people here? Because he benefited from it. If Bill Gates come out and says, I am having so much fun giving my money away, this is the funnest thing I've ever done, he actually goes down in esteem qua morality, because he's getting something from it. But if he said this is painful, but I'm doing it anyway because it's the right thing to do, ooh, then he's a good guy. Now notice the distortion, the complete nuttiness of this idea. Creating wealth, building stuff, trading with people, win-win situations, and giving it away, sacrifice, pain, not really helping that many people. That's the world we live in. And which one's capitalism? Capitalism is capital. Capitalism is the one where we trade. It's where we make money. It's where we pursue our self-interest. Capitalism is ignoble. There's something wrong with it. And at the end of the day, people do not vote their pocketbook. People do not vote their economic interests. They don't. If they did, we'd have laissez-faire capitalism today in America. People don't vote their economic interest. People vote what they think is right. People vote what they think is just. People want to feel like they're doing good, they're doing the right thing. We have a proposition tomorrow in California to raise taxes on everybody making $250,000 or more. How many people making $250,000 or more do you think are going to vote for that proposition in California? My guess is a majority. You know, California's a little nutty, but it's a reality. Well, why? Why would they do that? Why would anybody vote for them? To hurt themselves. Well, think about the emotion that they have, right? This is morality. This is what they should be. This is the behavior their mother told them they should model themselves after. But where do they live? They live over here. They live making money, producing stuff. What does that create when you're living a different life than what you think is the essence of what is good? Guilt, that's the essence of guilt. Guilt is this feeling that you're not doing what you should do, that you're doing the opposite of what you should do. Guilt is a great lever with which to manipulate people. I come from Jewish households, I know this really well. You Catholics out there probably know this too, right? Guilt is an incredible lever to use people, right? So that's exactly what we do. We tell these rich guys, we tell them, you know, Obama could be saying this, right? We know, no, making money is a good thing. We're not against making money. We're not against creating wealth. No, you should make money and create wealth. But look, you've got a moral responsibility, a moral duty to give back. And all we're doing by raising your taxes, is just helping you be a little bit more moral. We're helping you feel better about yourself. We're making you move, helping you move from here to here. That's it. And we all go for it because we feel guilty. You know, I did an awards ceremony in Charleston, South Carolina, about a year ago. It was that luncheon where business leaders were getting awards for lifetime achievement, right? And they were being introduced. They were each got a long introduction, like 10-minute introduction. And it was fascinating to hear the introductions because these introductions, they would spend 2 minutes on their business achievements and 8 minutes on their philanthropy and community service. They were getting business awards for lifetime achievement. What do you think they helped? Again, by their own standard, where did they help the community more? In their business. But we view that as bad. So, let's be very clear. As long as we hold on to this morality, as long as we hold on to the view that ethics, that morality, that justice, that fairness, all those words that Obama likes to throw out, that all those mean sacrifice and selflessness and doing for others, focus on others, capitalism is doomed. That morality is consistent with socialism. That morality is consistent with statism. That morality is consistent with redistribution of wealth. And it's kind of obvious, right? There's somebody there who's suffering. I have stuff and I'm not helping him. All the government's doing is helping me help him. That's what entitlements are. They're just helping you, help other people. How can you be opposed to that? And nobody is, right? Who's against entitlements? Nobody. Nobody. Left, white, middle, everybody agrees. You know, just Romney's going to do it better, right? I mean, I love the debates, right? There were Me Too debates. They didn't disagree on anything on fundamentals. It was just a matter that the Republicans were going to do it more efficiently than the Democrats. They agree on the importance of Medicare, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to save it better than you're going to save it. I don't want you to save it, but right? You can ask me about Medicare in the Q&A. So nobody disagrees. So we have to help them. That's the moral status. You have to help them. It's your moral duty. It's your moral obligation. As long as it's your moral obligation, you've got an entitlement state. The entitlement state will not go away and will only grow because there's no standard by which you can shrink it. Because there's always somebody who needs help. Always. You know, just look at Medicare, at healthcare, right? We started off with just a few poor people and a few old people who were going to get government help. And then it was a large group, you know, we kept expanding what poor meant, so more and more people fell under Medicare and Medicaid. And Medicare, of course, grows because the baby boomers are retiring. But then there are these people, there are people who don't quite qualify as poor, but don't have enough money supposedly to buy health insurance, so they're like stuck in the middle. And their children, I mean, we really feel sorry for the children, right? They got to use the children, because that really tugs in our heart, because who doesn't want to help children? So we get a new government program called CHIP, right? Which just helps children who can't. And then there's all these uninsured people who go into the emergency room and can't get medical care because they don't have insurance and they don't have any money. Well, we got to help them. So we force emergency rooms to treat anybody who comes in. So now there are clinics for people who have a cold. If you ever been to an emergency room, you know what I'm talking about. The long lines of people who got the sniffles. They go to the emergency room because they get free health care then. You know who passed that bill? When did we force emergency rooms to treat anybody who came in? Yeah, 1986, Ronald Reagan signed that bill. Just to give you some examples. There's always going to be a group in need. And of course, today the group in need is 30 million Americans who don't have health insurance. Right? So now we're going to give them a subsidy, and the next group in need is what? Is everybody. Because when the health system collapses because of Obamacare, we're all going to be stuck without health care, and they're going to have a single payer to cover us all. I mean, that's inevitable. It is inevitable. Unless you reverse everything that's been done over the last 30, 40, 50 years, it's inevitable that we get universal health. So you get the entitlement state because of this morality. You also get the regulatory state because of this morality, because this morality has a flip side. If we think businessmen and people in the business world and people in marketplace are out for their self-interest, what do we think about self-interest? We know it's bad, but what particular way is it bad? What does self-interest need you to do? Greed, but what are the actual behaviors? Right? What do we expect people who are pursuing their self-interest to do? Exploit others. Right? So they're going to lie, steal, cheat. Right? I mean, we all grew up with this, right? When you called that kid, you're selfish, you didn't mean it as a compliment in our culture. You meant you would trample over anybody to get your way. Right? Now, if you believe that businessmen, because they're in it for profit, are going to trample over everybody to get their way, what are you going to do to them? You want to control them. You want to make sure that they don't. You know how, this building doesn't have an elevator, but you know, you go into a building and there's an elevator, and in the elevator there's a sort of diploma from some government bureaucrat that says the elevator is safe. I always feel so much better after I see the diplomas there. Because I know that in the free market, if there wasn't an elevator inspector sent by the government, then all the elevators would fall and kill us. Because that's what businesses do. They kill their customers. That's how they make money. You guys didn't know this? You know, if we didn't have an FDA, McDonald's, what would they do? I mean, all they meat would be tainted. We'd be sick all the time, so us would die. I mean, it doesn't make any sense in its face. And yet, why do we feel, I mean, even with this group, I'm sure that some of you say, well, what would happen without FDA? I mean, it would be insane. All these profit-seeking individuals will go out there and do horrible things. Because we've been taught that that's what it means. That profit-seeking means selfish, which means horrible things. That's what these people who want to convince us that self-sacrifice is the standard have taught us. Selfishness, self-interest leads to lying, stealing, cheating. The best example of this that I saw firsthand was Sarbanes-Oxley. Just some of you will be affected by Sarbanes, right? One of the worst regulatory bills ever passed by Congress. Anybody know what the vote was? I like to hammer away the Republicans. Anybody know what the vote was? 98-0. Not a single conservative voted against it. This is a bill that cost, probably the news economists up there, $2 trillion in GDP. It's a monster. It's a disaster. If you work for a bank, you know the tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars that were put into the systems that were put in to monitor Sarbanes-Oxley. It monitors every little thing that anybody within a business does. How many crooks has it caught? 0. Did it prevent the financial crisis? Yeah. But it's there. You've got a regulator on every business's shoulder checking the books. Why? Why did they pass this? Because in 2000, there were a few companies that had corrupt CEOs, Enron, WorldCom, Tyco, a few others. But the conclusion was they were all crooks. And we need to catch them. And we need a mechanism to catch them. Sarbanes-Oxley was a mechanism to catch them. And this was expressed explicitly by that icon of conservative thinking, or right-wing thinking, free market thinking, Bill O'Reilly. In 2002, I was on his show, and Bill wanted to fire every CEO in America because they were all crooks. How did he know they were all crooks? We caught 5, and the rest have the same incentive. They're all out for profit. Therefore, they're all crooks. And I was there to defend CEOs. It was quite a yelling match. But that's what it leads you to believe. And that's why we have more and more regulations. It never stops. There's never less regulations. It's just, they just grow and grow. We can't trust business. Few areas we've deregulated, now we're starting to re-regulate. We keep increasing this. We keep controlling more aspects of the economy, more businessmen, because we don't trust them. don't trust them. Because we don't trust their fundamental motive. This battle that we're engaged in is not an economic battle. It's not a political battle. This is a battle about morality. This is a battle about your view of morality. What is right, what is good, what is just, what is noble. And as long as we hold on to the conventional morality we have today, we lose and are losing and have been losing for 100 years. This is the revolution that Ayn Rand offers us. It is a moral revolution. It's an ethical revolution. Rand rejects this vision of mobility and morality. She rejects it with a simple question. Why should you live for other people? Why are other people's well-being the standard of what is good? Why should you sacrifice? Why should you be worse off? There's no answer. And she posits an alternative. And the alternative is that you live for your own life. That your life is yours. Not the community's, not somebody else's, but yours. And that your moral responsibility, your moral duty is to yourself. Is to live the best life that you can live for yourself. To make the best life out of what you have. To do the best with the talents that you have. And how do you do that? You do that by trading. I mean, first of all, you do it by making yourself the best that you can do, but in terms of other people, by trading. By engaging in win-win relationships. By bettering yourself, by helping other people get better. And they do get better, right? Every trade is a win-win. At least it's intended to be a win. You do it by pursuing rational values that are focused on what is going to make my life the most flourishing, the happiest life that we can have. You know, she's very much of a Aristotelian in this sense. Aristotle talked about the purpose of morality is human flourishing. Rand talks about achieving happiness for human being, living the best life that you can as a human being. And a life like that, if we're focused on what's the most important thing to pursue if you want to live the best life that you can live as a human being? What makes a beautiful room like this possible? The seats that you're sitting on, the clothes that you're wearing, the phones that you're carrying in your pocket. What makes all of that possible? Every human value out there really is made possible. Our food, where does it come from? So here's the exercise, right? Look at your neighbor. No, look. Pathetic. Your neighbor's a pathetic animal. Slow, weak, no claws, no fangs. You ever tried biting into a bison? Or running one down? I mean, as a biological specimen, in the battle for survival out there, we, from a physical perspective, lose. Yet we thrive. What makes that possible? It's not any physical attribute we have, it's not our thumbs. It's our mind. It's our ability to think, it's our ability to reason, it's our ability to rationally figure stuff out. You know the guy who discovered agriculture? You know, discovered that a seed is watered, something sprouts out from that. That was the Einstein of his day. That's not obvious to us. Well, that's a joke. No. I mean, it took thousands of years for people to figure that out. Some Einstein figured that out. Right? And then it took a Bill Gates to say, and I can sow, you know, seeds and grow plants and sell them in the marketplace. Right? That's an act of incredible thought, of reason, of rationality. How to figure out how to make clothes. I don't know how to make clothes. I mean, some of you might, but I have no clue. I don't have that gene. Because we don't have that gene. Somebody had to figure it out. And then work with other people through the mechanism of trade in order to create this stuff. All the stuff that we enjoy today is a product of the human mind. So if you're going to pursue your own life and make the most of your own life, what is the one value that's more important than any other value? It's your reason, it's your rational faculty, it's your ability to think. So Rand is an advocate of rational self-interest, rational long-term self-interest. Thinking about what's the best life that you can live over the whole lifespan. I like to tell people, being self-interested, being selfish means taking care of self. It's hard work. Because it means literally figuring it out. Thinking about it, calculated, doing a risk assessment about your life, taking it seriously. And what about the line stealing, cheating? Is that part of self-hate? Is that part of rational, long-term self-hate? Was Bernie Madoff selfish? Well, most of you probably thought he was, at least before I spoke. Because most people think Bernie Madoff is the epitome of selfishness. But look at what a lousy life he had. Even before he was caught. He was terrified. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't look anybody in the eye because he was lying to everybody. Life was horrible. He says that he's happier in prison than he was before he was caught. And I believe him. You ever tried lying? Some of you probably have. Wild case. It sucks. It's really bad. You never achieve what you want to achieve through it. It almost always backfires. And if you do it enough times, it's literally destructive. It destroys your soul. I mean, at my age, I find it really hard to remember what actually happens. Like some of you asked me what I did last week, and it took me a while, right, to remember. Now imagine how I lie about what happened. Now I have to remember two things. One was hard enough. I have to remember two, but it's not really two. Because every lie compounds itself, because I have to remember who I like to, because I don't like everybody. I mean, you just can't keep track. It's ridiculous. It's such hard work to lie, and so self-destructive to your own capacity. I mean, there's only so many hours in a day. If I had to keep track of all this stuff, I mean, it's impossible. A good businessman doesn't lie, because if you're in business, you know what happens if you lie. If you're in business, you know what happens when you cheat. You don't survive for very long. Not in a free market. Not unless you have, you know, in today's market, maybe if you have connections and everybody else is as controlled as you are. In a free market, you don't survive. Lying, cheating, stealing, all those things associated with selfishness are not selfish. They're self-destructive. It's only those other guys who want you to believe. Because why would anybody choose to sacrifice his life to make the purpose of his life other people, unless he was presented with an alternative that's so much more horrible? So think of what we're presented with. Either advocate for the selflessness, or be a lying, cheating, stealing. Well, I mean, most of us want to be good, so we don't want to lie, steal, and cheat. Most businessmen do what? Because they can't be this. You can't be selfless in a business. I mean, you can't. People have tried. Beat up and control data. They tried. They went out of business. So what do? But they don't want to be liar, stealing, cheaters. And there's no alternative presented to them. So what do they teach in business school? They teach to be pragmatic. What does pragmatic mean? Do whatever works. In a sense, do whatever you can get away with. There is no moral standard. I was taught when I was a student that in a business ethics class, the one standard we had was don't do anything you don't want to appear in the New York Times the next day. That's our moral standard. But that's it. That's all we got. Because there's nothing once you accept this from now. So what we have today is a moral battle. It's a moral battle between those who want you to live for others, who want you to sacrifice your life, who want you to give. Who want you to give back, not create, not make. And to the extent that you create and make, the only reason to create and make is for what? Is so that you can give. Now say that. I hear people saying, no. In order to give, I have to first create. And I'm going, you got this reverse. The purpose is not giving. That's one morality. The other morality says, no, live your life for you, for your own benefit, for your own happiness, for your own success. And as a consequence, be rational. Use your reason and make, create, build. The only way you're going to be happy is if you gain self-esteem. The only way to have self-esteem is not the ribbon that we all get, right? All the students get the same ribbon. No, you get self-esteem by challenging yourself and achieving stuff. It's achievement that gains you self-esteem. But where do we achieve? We achieve at work. We achieve through production. We achieve by knowing that we can take care of ourselves. That we are productive human beings, that we're worthy. That's what gives us self-esteem, and that's what leads to human happiness. So work, create, build. Become rich. Enjoy the wealth. Or don't become rich. Become a teacher and enjoy teaching. It's not about money. It's not about money. It's not about money. It's not about wealth. It's not about material stuff. It's about being happy. Some of us decide not to go into the profession that's going to make us a lot of money because we love what we do. And that's more important than money. It's about the total package of living the fullest, most successful, happiest life you can live. That's a great message. That's the morality at the core of what America is. That's the implicit morality of the founding of this country. Because in 1776, the revolution was not about taxes. The revolution was not about the American race versus the English race. The revolution was about an idea. And it's a simple idea. It's the question of who does your life belong to? Before 1776, every human being on the planet, their life belonged to whom? To somebody. Somebody else. Could be the tribe, could be the king, could be the pope, it could be the country, the fatherland. Something. Founders said, no, our life belongs to us. Our lives are ours to live as we see fit. That was the real political revolution. That's what independence means. Your independence from the group, from the tribe, from the collective. This is a country founded on the principle of individualism. And that's the spirit we need to resurrect if we're going to turn things around. We need to reject what the founders rejected, which is the collectivism, the tribalism of pre-1776 world. And we need to adopt an individualistic morality and political system. They got the political system. We need to resurrect them. We need to establish the morality. But the political system they got so well that implicit in it is the morality. Because after all, each one of us has a right to what? An inalienable right that nobody can take away. Not even a majority, not even 99% of the people voting against you can take away your right to what? To your life. Your life, to live as you see fit. What does it mean you have a right to life? It means you have a right to take the actions that you see necessary to live your life. And as long as you're not hurting other people, physically hurting other people, government, your neighbor, your group of neighbors have no right to stop you. Whether they like what you're doing or don't like what you're doing. Whether they think you're hurting yourself or not. The whole point is you have a right to pursue your life. And you have a right to liberty. You have a right to think whatever thoughts you want and to act based on those thoughts. And in the most selfish, self-interested political statement in human history, each one of us has a right to pursue our own happiness. Now that is what we need to resurrect. That is the formula for winning. That is the formula for reversing this, getting us back on track towards freedom. Thank you all.
I see altruism as the core of the problem, and it's like a two-sided coin. You have the progressives of the world on one side, the more secular altruism, and then you have the religious people that have the altruism come from their religious doctrine. How do you fight that? How do you change it? Because that's really important.
Yes, so the question is altruism, which is this morality as I described, self-sacrifice, selflessness. Altruism, by the way, does not mean benevolence. It means otherism. It means that your life belongs to others. It means that your purpose in life is to serve others, is to sacrifice for others. This comes, the word was invented by a philosopher called Auguste Comte, C-O-M-T-E, in France in the 19th century. It's a relatively modern word, right? And that's what it means. But again, they want you to think it means benevolence. It doesn't. It means literally sacrifice. What was suggested was, look, the left believes this because all the philosophers believe it and everything they're teaching in socialism and so on. And the right believes it because of religion and so on, supposed, you know, arguing for the same thing. Yes, and in that sense, this is why. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's in the White House or who's in the Senate. Now, it matters in the sense of the speed at which we deteriorate, but it doesn't matter in a direction because both believe in altruism. There's no fundamental philosophical difference between the left and the right in this country. They both believe in the morality of the same thing. Now, how do you challenge it? The point is that there's no magic bullet. There has been and there will be. The only way to challenge it is to challenge people to think. It's to ask the questions that you have to ask. Why? Why does your life not belong to you? Why is your life not as important as other people's life? Why is it more important to you than them? Where does morality come from? You know, you have to ask tough questions, and you have to get them thinking, you have to get them reading. Book. Buy it for your friends. So that elaborates a lot more on what I talked about. It gets into a lot more detail. But there's no shortcuts. So it's about thinking. It's about challenging the fundamental ideas. And it's about talking about morality. So the problem is that most people are uncomfortable talking about morality. So even the good guys, even people who are pro-free markets, you know, they can easily make the case. Here's the, my favorite example is, you know how minimum wage causes unemployment? Right? Anybody need the economic explanation? Right? You have a price control, $10 an hour. Kids who can only work $6 an hour in terms of what they can produce will never find a job because nobody's going to pay 10 for something that's only worth 6. Right? So you create unemployment, and that's why teen unemployment in the United States, unemployment between the ages of 16 and 24 is over 25%. Because they're not worth $10 an hour. Everybody gets that in economics. The economics is simple. You go right in the classroom, and everybody will pass the exam. And then you ask the kids at the end of the class, how many of you are for minimum wage? And half the kids raise their hand. Because what's driving them is I gotta help them. We gotta find a way to help them. It's our moral duty to help them. You know, yeah, I guess it doesn't work, but I gotta help them. Right? That's what you have to challenge. If we have more people challenging that, not just doing the supply and demand curves, but actually challenge that emotion, then I think we've got a chance. We've got to talk the talk. We've got to talk the language of ethics and justice and right. Yeah.
The basic idea of what you're saying is you're challenging the notion that we have to help people. And I get that. The problem as I see it is not that people want to help others. It is the means by which. When you ask, would you vote for such and such, what you're really saying is, would you point a gun at somebody to make him do this thing and not do that other thing? And we're forgetting about that use of force. De Tocqueville in 1840 admired America because of the way that people voluntarily helped each other. But you wrote a passage, I wish I could quote it, about how people, because of their belief in the legitimacy of self-government, would create a web of rules which would extend over every aspect of our lives.
Sure.
This was back in 1840. It essentially predicted what we see today.
This is the problem. I'm not forgetting about force. I know force. But the fact is that 95% of the population believes that force is justified if the end is good. And you cannot challenge that assumption unless you challenge the morality behind it. So, yeah, I'm not against helping people. I'm just saying it's not like a moral duty to help other people. It's not the essence of morality. It's not what life is about. Yes, free people are the most generous people on the planet. Freedom generates generosity, benevolence to other human beings. And when somebody's in trouble, you help them. Voluntarily. But if you believe that it's your moral duty, that it's your moral obligation, if you don't help them, you're a bad person, then you're asking for force. Force is going to come because there's always somebody who needs more. As much charity as we poured on them in the 19th century, there were still poor people. There were still suffering children. And we just didn't do enough. And there's always somebody that's going to say, look, I'm just going to help people do enough. You're only giving 10%. If you gave 20%, we could do enough. And you say, yeah, but I don't really want to give 20%. Well, I'm going to force you to do it. And we all voted for it. We all voted for it. I mean, we forget, the income tax was ruled unconstitutional for years, decades after decade after decade. So we passed a constitutional amendment to make it okay. We wanted this. This wasn't something that was snuck up on us by some evil leftist conspiracy. We're okay with force. We like force. We believe in forcing other people to do stuff all the time. We believe in forcing ourselves to do stuff because we're too selfish. You have to challenge the underlying beliefs, and the underlying beliefs about morality, and you have to ask the question, why is force bad? Why is force bad? Yeah, but why is that bad? What is it about force that is so evil that we have to extract it from society? I mean, other than a few thinkers here in history, nobody thinks it's bad. I mean, Plato's fine with force. Kant is fine with force. Hegel's fine with force. Nietzsche's fine with force. Who's against force? Ayn Rand and, you know, another handful of thinkers. That's it. Why? What makes Ayn Rand against force? Because what's she for? She's for reason. What's the enemy of reason? What's the thing that cripples a man's mind? It's force. So she's against force on principle because she's for reason. But you have to go back there. You have to deal in philosophy. You can't start with the non-coercive principle because nobody buys it, nobody believes it, nobody thinks it's right. They don't. You have to explain to them why coercion is evil. Coercion is evil, it's anti-mind, it's anti-reason, therefore it's anti-human values. And that depends on a whole system of philosophy, and you can't skip over that. I mean, it would be great, again, if we had the magic bullet, just say, non-coercion. Everybody says, oh, okay, we get it. It's not that simple, we try it. Yeah.
I understand, you know, we're on a slippery slope to socialism, but I also understand, of course, just the last few years, that we've been for a long time under a system of corporatist socialism, where the corporations benefit from the largesse, including power companies and so forth.
So power companies are monopolies protected by government, so they're a government entity. You know, so I hate the word corporatism because it assumes that corporations are bad. I like the word cronyism or crony socialism because there is no such thing as crony capitalism. There's only one form of capitalism. But socialism, there are lots of forms of it. You know, what we have today is cronyism. And yeah, you got to do away with that. That's bad. That's a form of statism. It's a form of socialism. It's bad. But you don't fight cronyism by fighting business. You don't fight cronyism by fighting corporations. You fight cronyism by fighting government. You know how many dollars Microsoft spent on lobbying before the Justice Department went after them? 0. You know who harassed them to death to get them to lobby? Orrin Hatch, the Republican from Utah. He had hearings, and he brought Microsoft in front of the hearings and lambasted them for not lobbying, for not being in Washington, D.C. within the Beltway having offices, because they had them out in Maryland. So the Justice Department goes after them, right, and harasses them. Guess how much they spend on lobbying today? Tens to hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And they have a huge office space inside the building. Apple, if you read Politico once in a while, they had a series of articles a few months ago about Apple not lobbying enough, not spending enough money in Washington. Okay. Cronyism is created by government. Cronyism is created by politicians who use force, who use coercion to extract money from business, and then what happens to business? The business gets corrupted as a consequence, and then the business starts playing the game. But the beginning, the real evil, is government. And the only way to get rid of corporatism, I use the word cronyism, the only way to get rid of it is to get rid of government control over the economy. I mean, if I had to rewrite the Constitution, I would have, you know, we have a separation of church and state. I would have 4 separations. Separation of church and state. Separation of economics and state. No government intervention in the economy. Period. None. Separation of education and state. Last thing you want is government-run schools. And separation of science and state. Those 4, and we got to free them. That go, I mean, you can't even start there. We're still arguing about the first one.
I'd like to follow up on a point that you made earlier. You said people don't vote their pocketbook. I'd like to present you with a hypothesis and get your take on it. Today, there's a lot of folks who would like to live in a better world. So I just say that so that we understand what the end is something. So I'd like to see a better world. I and people I care about, I'd like to live in that kind of a world. And a lot of the folks that I know, they're putting some fraction of their time and their wealth into trying to turn things around. Typically, when they think of what is the pathway by which to do that, most often they think, I'm going to get involved in politics. The local level, state level, whatever. And the more I think about it, the more I think involvement, non-political involvement, particularly at the local level, you can get face-to-face, eyeball to eyeball with people to give them the kind of lessons that you've just been talking here, like the folks in Charlotte. And I'm not from Charlotte, so I can say that, but they're doing a great job. I get your take on that. What role do you see in helping, encouraging organizations at the local level on a non-political basis to get involved in such things? And, it's more of an education thing. What's your take on that, and how do you go about it?
Yes, the question is, how do we change the world? Is it going to be yes, is it going to be through politics, or is it going to be through education? And I come down very strongly on the side of education. This is not a political struggle. Now, you got to get involved in politics to give us time to do the education, because education takes a long time. So some politics you have to do, right? Just to slow it down. That's why I said, don't expect, even if Romney wins, and I don't know the odds, but even if Romney wins, nothing's going to change in terms of the direction we're heading. But I believe, at least, that the deterioration slows down, which means buys us time. But the emphasis, the real change, if it's going to come, is through education, education, education. And at every level. It's face-to-face, one-on-one. It's getting into the high schools where you can. We spend a lot of resources to try to get Ayn Rand books taught in high schools. We believe we have between 500,000 and 1 million kids reading Ayn Rand in high school every year. We spend a lot of money on trying to get professors to teach Ayn Rand, or to talk about free market ideas, or to talk about morality of capitalism. There are probably 80 programs, actually all around here, all around the Southeast, where together with BBT, we partnered to create these programs where, where people are being taught the morality of capitalism, at least discussing. Who knows what they're teaching? So it's those kind of programs, it's these kind of sessions, it's engaging with people face to face that's going to make a difference. And getting groups together, studying ideas, teaching the ideas, exposing people to ideas, expanding on that. That's what's going to do it. At the same time, you have to fight that political battle, unfortunately, at the same time, because there are no ideas out there. We're it, so we have to give them a little bit of ideas as well. And I consider that education as well. I think there's a lot of work to be done. The Tea Party is a phenomenal phenomenon that needs to be cultivated. And it needs to be cultivated primarily through education. It's a great place to go and help educate, and help talk about ideas, and help gain understanding of, of the issues that are involved. So it doesn't necessarily conflict, right? You do education and politics as well. But I wouldn't jump and run for office. I think there's a lot of stuff you can do short of running for office. So people, somewhat, as a joke, always ask me why I don't run for president. And then the two reasons: one, I can't because I was born in Israel. But I hear that's not that big of a deal. But the second reason is much more important. I would lose in a landslide. In a landslide, it wouldn't even be close. The country's not ready for me. It's not. I'm radical. We, to the extent that you agree with me, are radical. We're way out there. Politics, you can't keep your integrity in terms of what you really believe in and win. I mean, there might be politicians here, so there might be exceptions, but generally, certainly in California, it ain't happening. You can't stand up and be pro laissez-faire capitalism and win in America today. Maybe in 20 years, maybe in 40 years, maybe in 50 years, let's hope. But not today. So today, even when you engage in politics, political activism, Do it from the perspective of education, from the perspective of trying to increase the amount of knowledge out there about the fundamental ideas about what it's going to take to get to a point where we can elect somebody like me for president. Not that we ever wanted to, but thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Scottish Rite Temple. And I wanted to say thank you to Andy Clarkson for all of your... I'd like to have more of these in the future. So make sure we stay connected, Facebook page, emails, because I'm just phenomenally happy with the turnout, and I know we can bring in some other quality speakers like Yaron. So let's stay in touch.